right, we'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. All right, welcome everyone. Tom, check the roll, please.
Mayor King.
Present.
Councilmember at Large Austin.
Present.
Councilmember Baker.
Right here.
Baskin.
Present.
Fisher.
Present.
Pashusta.
Present.
Helly.
Present.
Postma.
Present.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a motion adopting the agenda with the additions to the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is a motion approving our meeting minutes from July 3rd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 under recognitions and awards, the EPA Brownfield Community Assessment Presentation.
Yes, Mayor,
Holly.
council members. In late last year, the city of Austin was awarded an EPA community-wide assessment grant. We have been working with Stantec to begin implementing the grant. The grant amount was $500,000 with no match from the city. Lindsey Brown and Heidi Pepper are here to give you an overview of the timeline and the opportunities available through this Brownfield grant. And this is kind of the kickoff of our community outreach.
All right.
Thank you, Holly. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. It's happy to be here with you tonight after 3 years, Holly and Craig, of working on this EPA Brownfields Assessment Grant. So was very excited to have worked on it, to see it be awarded. My name is Heidi Pepper. This is Lindsey Brown. We are funding specialists at Stantec. I don't want to bore you with too much, but we have a combined, 30 plus years of finding money for our clients and their projects. Lindsey especially is a brownfields expert. I'm more of a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife, if you will. But in any event, it was a lot of fun working with Lindsey and team on this project. And so tonight, now that the contract has been awarded and executed, we're just going to provide you with an overview of Brownfields 101, an overview of the project, and then get into a few of the details related to eligible use of the funds, goals, responsibilities, and answer any questions that you might have related to this grant. So I already went through the introductions. Here we are. Rosita Clark, she is the Regional Program Administrator for the EPA, and I should back up, Environmental Protection Agency, so the EPA. She is your resource, and the EPA has a lot of technical assistance tools at the city's disposal to help leverage and make the most of this program in the city of Austin. So here's her contact information. She was hoping to be here in person. She has made it out once already, I believe, and she will again in the future, but was unable to join us tonight. So Brownfields 101, what is it? You can see the EPA definition there. A lot of people, when they hear brownfields, they think smokestacks and like heavy industrial. That's not necessarily the case. A brownfields can be an underutilized property, a vacant property, a property with suspicion that there might be contamination because of previous uses. The key is that there is development or was development on that piece of property at one point. It's not a greenfield, so it's not an open, wide open space. There's two primary categories of brownfields, petroleum and hazardous substances. So these are the kinds of contamination that we're looking to assess. So it's not, just debris. So these are contaminants that have serious environmental risks. So these are the kinds of issues we'll be dealing with. And of course, why are they a problem? Why is there a program at the EPA specifically geared towards brownfields assessment? So this is one category of the brownfields program that they have. They have assessments, they have a cleanup fund, they have a revolving loan fund, and that's because they are harder to develop. As I'm sure you know and have experience within the city, these properties where there's suspicion or known contamination, people are a little bit shy from diving into buying those parcels, and it's more expensive It's just harder to get those into their highest and best use. And so that presents a potential loss of tax revenue for the city, loss of jobs, not to mention the threats to public health related to the environmental concerns. So that's why there are these programs dedicated to brownfields. And now, Lindsay's gonna dive into the specifics of the Austin project.
So kind of fun, I started my day this morning in Austin, Texas, and I'm ending it in
way.
very different climates, but
Dramatically upgraded Austin's.
there you go.
You came the right direction.
I mean, I think so. I walked out of the airport and thought, oh, it's sweatshirt weather. This is great. So a little bit about the grant that the city won. So you all have now $500,000 in a pot of money that's available to be used throughout the city for the next 3 years. This money can be used on publicly owned sites that the city owns, or it can be used on privately owned sites. This is a very unique aspect of this grant. Most funding for redevelopment and real estate is very geared towards the public sector. This one can also be used by private developers or private owners, which is great because sometimes those are the ones that are going to sit the longest because they have no access for getting help of figuring out what to do next. So some of the goals that EPA identifies are listed here. Where we're at right now is we're really in this identifying phase, taking a look at the whole city of Austin, what's available out there for redevelopment, talking to property owners, really kind of making our game plan is where we're at right now. So we're really in the infancy stage of this grant, but kind of how I like to explain it is once things get rolling, it's kind of like that snowball at the top of the mountain. It's just gonna start building and you're gonna be getting people really excited about what the potential is for this type of funding and for revitalizing Austin. Inside of our grant, we have to do anticipated outputs. Again, this is anticipated. This is kind of a metrics that we set for ourselves when we're writing the grant to EPA. Right now, like I mentioned, we're in that inventory stage where we're looking at all the sites throughout the city. We're utilizing GIS features, things like that. MPCA is what's in my neighborhood. Is something we're also taking a look at for sites that have had tanks removed or haven't had tanks removed. And then we'll start diving into the environmental pieces of this grant. Phase 1s and phase 2s, which if you don't know what those are, they're environmental site assessments. Most of the time, we do a lot of those in real estate transactions with commercial or industrial sites. A phase 1 is more of your desktop survey. So that's gonna be where we're looking at the history of the site, taking a look at what its past uses were, seeing if there's a reason why there might be some contamination either underground, affecting groundwater, drinking water, soil, asbestos, lead-based paint, things like that. So what this grant will do is anything on this list up to cleaning up the site, but not including cleaning up the site. So getting that property ready to actually head into the reuse and redevelopment. Some of the goals that we identified in the City of Austin's grant are listed here. There's a bunch. But some of them include, obviously, like Heidi mentioned, getting things back on the tax base, job creation. We're gonna look at some areas at the end of this presentation. I have the target areas for planning. Looking at market analysis, what can certain corridors of the city handle? And then from the environmental side, reducing pollution runoff and making sure that if there is asbestos or lead-based paint, that it's not a human health crisis. Eligible uses of the grant funds. This is kind of a little snippet of what you could do with a brownfield inventory. We've talked about today different aspects of what we could do with GIS features and Sanborn history maps of the city and all kinds of different layers that we can do that in our geeky way are super fun. Looking at the city of Austin. So that's where we're at right now is developing this inventory of what is available for redevelopment throughout the city. Next is prioritizing those sites. Which ones are actually like gonna become something? Or which ones are we just gonna keep spinning our wheels for the next decade on? If we're gonna keep spinning our wheels, those may go to the bottom of the list. But if there's really a potential that somebody's gonna come along or is coming along now that wants to redevelop something, those are gonna kind of go to the top of that list and let's help them get through the process so we can actually see something done on a site. That can include doing some ranking with sites if needed. Sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not, but that's something we can do with this grant too. And here's a little bit of just the different ways that we would prioritize sites. Again, looking at the environmental conditions, is there levels of contamination that are potentially hazardous to the citizens of the city? Looking at the redevelopment feasibility. Like I said, is it something that's slated to be redeveloped soon, or is this a pipe dream that we're looking at in the next 10 years? And then goals of the community. What are you all's goals? What areas of the city are you guys wanting to see redeveloped that will create those new jobs and improve the blight? So this form right here is the site nomination form. It's available now, live on the city's website. This is what has to be submitted to EPA. It just gives a lot of background on the site that is known. If somebody knows if a phase 1 has been done before, who the prior owner was, who owns it currently, just some of that initial background information is required to put the site through the program. And then once that nomination form is completed, it gets submitted to EPA and or MPCA. So EPA is the holder of approving sites that are that hazardous material, asbestos, lead-based paint, anything but petroleum really. And MPCA has to approve all petroleum sites here in the state of Minnesota. Once the site gets approved for use of the funds, then there is an access agreement required, so no one is trespassing, and you have to get called. So that is required, that we have access to be able to get on properties. And then from there, we start moving ahead with doing the environmental site assessments and getting the site ready that it could be potentially cleaned up in the future. So a little detail on what that phase 1 is. Again, it identifies the potential environmental contamination that could be there. We do not collect samples at this point. This is really just like a walk around, taking a look around. Are there empty drums on the site still in the back corner of a garage? Was there ever anything spilled where there's still staining on the cement or in a grassy area? Things like that. And then the phase 2, if needed, is when we start sampling and taking a look at what is under the ground, doing some testing, seeing how the levels are, and if some cleanup is necessary. This grant also covers hazardous material surveys. That is for buildings that potentially have asbestos, lead-based paint. You can also do the surveys for mold, which we see a lot in downtowns where there are older buildings where the asbestos or lead-based paint may still be there. Asbestos wrapped pipes, lead-based paint around windows, things like that. And that this survey is necessary so that way they can come in and abate the material out, but they need to know where it is first before they can start doing that. So this survey can be paid for underneath of this grant. And then the next step would be a response action plan. This is a detailed cost estimate that goes to the state. And once it is approved, then it's part of the closure process and getting the site into redevelopment. So this grant can also pay for that response action plan to get that to the point that the site can actually be remediated and cleaned up. The other fun thing that we love about this grant, which I know Holly is excited about, is the planning activities. So this is part of this grant. Usually in the funding world, we see a lot where there are environmental grants and there are planning grants, but they're usually not together. So in this grant, you can also do plans. They are not citywide plans, they're more focus plans. They call them small area-wide plans for this program. So we're gonna look at more like a corridor, a neighborhood, a smaller area of the city, and really zone in on that and focus on where it's at, where we want it to go. Is it zoned correctly? Do we need to take a look at that? Is there residential where there should be commercial or vice versa? And this is just a little bit of some of the activities that can be included underneath of those planning activities. Like I mentioned, just that smaller area, looking at land use, doing a market analysis, taking a look at, do we need a hotel in the area? Do we have too much green space? Do we need more green space? And that all includes community outreach. It includes a steering committee with people that are involved or invested in the neighborhoods, and really getting people's input as we go through the process. These are some links, and I think this presentation will be added to the website, but these are some links on EPA's website of additional documentation of what planning can be done underneath of this grant. So when we wrote the grant, we had to come up with some target areas of the city. And these are the 3 target areas that we wrote about in the grant that was funded. So from these target areas, this is where we really dove down into the metrics of the neighborhoods, you know, what the population is, what's the density, all the different things that we have to look at when we're writing the grant application. And lastly, roles and responsibilities. So you all, as the City of Austin, are responsible for the overall administration of this grant and reporting back to EPA. It is the city's grant. And Holly and Craig are in charge of making sure that Heidi and I stay on track and do our jobs, and coordinating meetings with our Brownfield Advisory Committee. This is a committee that was put into the grant application. It's of different stakeholders throughout the community, real estate agents, nonprofits. It's a very diverse group of people that were chosen for that. And they are really going to help us with getting the word out about this program, helping spread the word, and letting people in the city know that this grant is available for their use. So our role as Stantec, as your consultant, is to complete those environmental assessments and remedial and planning activities. We're also helping navigate this inventory and the outreach for this grant, and assist with reporting to EPA. This grant does, as all funding does, have reporting requirements quarterly and annually, and we have to keep EPA up to date on what we're doing. And then also serve as a technical resource for the city for this grant. And then, as Heidi mentioned, we are also funding specialists navigating other funding that can be tacked on and leveraged with this one as well. Any questions for us at all?
How do we, maybe a question for Holly is, with the Brownfield Advisory Committee, how are we connecting that to kind of the overall priority of some of the other economic development work we're doing, whether it's DCA or Port Authority or HRA or anything like that, to make sure they're all tightly connected together?
Well, 2 of our advisory committee members are Taggart Medgarden from the HRA and John Gary from the DCA.
Perfect. Well done.
And then we have a member from the Realtors Association and a member from the Welcome Center. And then I think it was Austin Utilities. And then, of course, the city staff are involved as well. But yeah, I can get you a list if you're curious who's involved. And then we meet 3 or 4 times a year. Mm-hmm. And, I think in some of these instances where maybe there's maybe we won't have a close call about, who should be nominated or who shouldn't be. Yeah. But they would be helpful in that particular instance for sure. Is there anything that you want to add, Lindsay or Heidi, to that?
Not really. I mean, I think that's great, like making sure that the people that are on the committee for this, and we really did think, Holly did a great job thinking that through, of how to make sure everything was connected, so that way economically we're not just pulling random people who aren't really that involved in things into this committee. So I think it's a well-rounded group that was chosen, and I think they'll serve well to help, one, get the word out, and then like Holly mentioned, if we need to utilize that for making sure sites are prioritized correctly, that we can lean on them.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Holly, if I'm talking to a constituent about this and they want to learn more, who do I point him to? Is it on our website? Do I give him your information? Where should I point somebody?
Maybe, having them contact me first would probably be helpful. And then, or if they feel comfortable just getting information from our website, they can check there too first maybe and just get a feel for yeah, it just depends on the person. Some people want to talk to someone and some people just want to educate themselves. But either way would be a good route.
Craig?
Thank you, Mayor. Members, just want to piggyback one thing Lindsay mentioned there is, in talking with Rosita, our EPA contact, this really opens up the door. The EPA really wants to see more of a concerted effort, so this is really, I think, the start of potential that we can address some of these troubled sites. So they want to see, I think, more long-lasting impact in the community. So this has been a great grant, and appreciate Stantec, both Lindsay and Heidi helping with this and navigating us through that. But the additional funds that hopefully will become available will be significant to try to turn some of those properties to reuse.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? All right, thanks for the presentation, Heidi and Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Got it. All right, item number 4 is a motion for the consent agenda
So moved.
with the agenda addition. Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
You good with that, Tom? Okay, item number 5 under public hearing, reviewing a tax abatement application for the Austin Housing Redevelopment Authority. Looking for 5A approval or denial of the abatement. Craig?
Thank you, Mayor and members. This is at 309 24th Avenue Northwest. This is in the North Point subdivision. Estimated value is $350,000. I believe this is their effort with the Riverland program. This is in conformance with our adopted program. This is a public hearing.
All right, anybody here from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Taggart, anything to add to it? So you've done what, this will be your 4th maybe? Fifth house?
Fourth building, we moved one, obviously.
Okay. Well, it seems like a good projects. With that, need a resolution approving or denying the abatement for 5.
So moved.
Second to approve.
Okay. Tom?
Councilmember Baker.
You bet.
Baskin.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Bashusta.
Aye.
Helly.
Aye.
Postma.
Aye.
Councilmember at Large Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom. Under petitions and requests, item number 6 is reviewing a zoning ordinance change. Holly?
Yeah, during the July 11th, 2023 meeting of the Austin Planning Commission, the commission reviewed a request to rezone property from Pulver Towing. The property is located at 1210 14th Street Northeast. The petitioners are requesting to rezone the property from B2 Community Business to an I1 Industrial District, primarily to allow outdoor storage of inoperable vehicles related to their towing business. One individual appeared in opposition to the rezone, primarily noting that there's existing industrial property in the Northeast Industrial Park and citing concerns about the size of the parcel and possible traffic conflicts. The petitioner noted that they have a plan for traffic circulation and will establish a fenced and screened-in area for the outdoor storage, vehicle storage. They also have additional sites for storage if needed. The Planning Commission, with 6 members present, recommended approval of the rezoning request 6-0. They found that the use is compatible with the surrounding uses and zoning. No significant impacts are anticipated with regard to the existing infrastructure and surrounding environment. And then just a note that this rezoning action must be passed by unanimous approval. If it fails in the first reading, it must be a second reading. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Holly. Council, any questions on this matter? Otherwise, looking for a motion for preparation of the ordinance. For the
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item number 6B is for adoption and publication of the ordinance.
So moved. Second.
Tom?
Councilmember Baker.
Absolutely.
Baskin.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Bashusta.
Aye.
Helly.
Aye.
Postma.
Aye.
Councilmember at Large Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes or ordinance passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom. Item number 7 is a motion reviewing a variance request for the Roddy Shiram Corporation doing business as One Stop Food Mart. Holly?
At the same meeting on July 11th, the Planning Commission reviewed a request from the petitioner for a variance, which requires a 20-foot setback in rear and side yards that abut a residential district. The petitioner has requested to build up to 5.4 feet from the west property line, which abuts one residential property. The proposed addition would then line up with the existing structure. There's no setback requirement from the adjacent B2 district to the south. The lot is small, and allowing the smaller setback made the expansion more feasible for One Stop. However, they have an alternative plan in the event the variance was not granted. The property in question is about 0.4 acres. With the proposed addition, the total lot coverage of the structures would be about 40%. 80% lot coverage is allowed. At the meeting, 2 neighbors spoke. The neighbor who was adjacent objected to the variance, and another neighbor appeared in support of the adjacent neighbor. The adjacent neighbor was primarily concerned about the addition of a liquor store as a use and then added traffic and the change in sight lanes. The variance request will not affect the commercial use of the property as a liquor store or other retail establishment. The builder for the petitioner also spoke and noted that the client agreed to additional development recommendations from the city, which were added to the packet. Which would include the addition of drives, curb, and a sidewalk along 12th Street Southwest and closure of the drive along 8th Avenue to improve traffic flow and pedestrian safety. After reviewing, the Planning Commission with 6 members present recommended denying the variance. They found that the variance did not meet the following criteria, specifically number 2, which is if the variance, if granted, would not alter the essential character of the locality in which the property is situated, that the variance is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance, that there are circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, and that the landowner intends to use the land in a reasonable manner not permitted by the ordinance.
Thank you, Holly. So just to understand, there's the variance was denied, but the property owner can build a like structure just off the property line, and they plan on doing that.
Yeah, the only issue was the setback. So I think when this gas station was first established, it probably predated our original zoning ordinance. And since then, we have required a setback when a business adjoins a residential district. So in this instance, their addition would be subject to that ordinance, which is the 20-foot setback requirement.
Excellent. Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. Members, just to add to that, the variance request would be consistent to what we afforded the Muffler Center not too long ago. And in terms of best use of the property, a lot on our First Avenue and Oakland corridors, those business areas, the broader economic viability of businesses these days require generally larger facilities. Those lots are challenged. So it makes it, I think, increasingly important that we allow them to maximize the use of their parcel to be a successful business, understanding that it does have impact to the adjoining neighbors, but our long-term approach of trying to grow that business corridor will be impacted both by this and other instances that would be considered.
Thank you, Greg. Council, any questions for Holly?
So the planning and zoning voted to deny the request?
Yes. I will recommend it to council.
Yeah.
And Holly, if I understand correctly, so if they want to add a liquor store on, obviously that's outside the purview of this conversation, but there's nothing, because it's zoned as a commercial, as long as they can qualify for a liquor license, there's not a ton that we can do as a council to not do that. Is that the right understanding of it?
Correct. If they hadn't have wanted to build right up to the property, well, 5 feet from the property line, they could have just went forward with getting a building permit for it. and applying for a liquor license. Whatever that process is, that's not my area of expertise.
So what is the difference between the project where we just said, yes, you can build right up to the property line, and this project? Is it the neighborhood and location being on Oakland Avenue as opposed to
Right.
this location?
The Muffler Center, I think, actually had a 2.5-foot setback. This one's proposing a 5-foot setback.
That's true. I mean, the first matter, the Muffler Center, the neighbors did not object.
Right.
And it's our understanding that this project is going to go forward even if we uphold the actions of the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight?
Yes, they provided already an alternate design.
Okay.
And I think our interest really is looking at long-term. When we look at zoning matters, we really have to try to accommodate any eligible use in that zoning area. So while they have specific interest in a specific use today, the free market will prevail, and whether or not a liquor store is successful or not successful there isn't our concern. Our concern is what might necessarily be there. Secondly, and does the layout and design of the building, does that suit other commercial use, or is that not using the property as efficiently and as best as we might be able to do?
And with this new information that they're gonna go forward with the building anyway, Holly did go through the extra step of contacting the neighbor that did object to see if now you know they're gonna do it either 15 feet off the property line or 5, would you want it aligned or not? Give them some say, maybe, if they, because they might go back and say, oh, if it's gonna be built anyway, then make it look best on with it lined up. Who knows? You didn't get a response yet from that person.
They are here.
Oh, are they? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
We do not want the variance granted.
Okay.
We don't want them.
Either way, you've seen the alternative plan then with it bumped out a little bit?
Yeah, if you look at the property, it really impacts.
Yeah, you can please step to the microphone, it'd be great. Sorry, I didn't know you were here. And you understand the pickle the council's in, we can't say no if it meets the criteria, so that it may look different.
Right, but the planning did recommend not to.
Yep.
So it would be the whole length of our east property line.
Yep.
It'd be towering over our house.
Get it?
Our bedroom's on that side, upstairs. It'd be increased light, increased noise pollution. It's what we absolutely do not want. It was a corner store, you know, before all the zoning, you know. People went there, kids went there, and with the liquor store being there, it's just not as user community friendly for sure.
And we can't dictate
Right,
what
you
goes there.
absolutely can't,
And we
but
can't
you-
dictate the non-variance either, so if they want to build, they certainly have the right, without that variance,
Yeah, yep,
to build it differently than, but just
Yep.
not next to your property line.
exactly,
It'd be off a little bit.
yep. People have a right to do what they want to do, I understand that, but
Sure.
not right on top of our property. If the rule is 20 feet, it should be 20 feet.
And if you could, sir, just state your name for the record.
Don Nystel, 1303 8th Avenue Southwest.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you. Council, questions, decisions, motions?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I tend to defer to the planning commission. I mean, we haven't 100% done that, but, you know, I think they look at a lot of these. And, you know, typically, I'm gonna lean more towards the economic development piece of it. I do think in this case, there's a difference in a liquor store, and I get that we don't have the ability to kind of impact that one way or the other, but I mean, it's a relatively neighborhood-ish type of thing. So I don't have any issue distinguishing between the fundamental nature of it being changed with the liquor store and kind of doing the, okay, let's try to protect the neighborhood as much as we can, versus a Muffler Center on Oakland or, you know, something else like that. So I'm in support of denying the variance request.
Anything else, council? We got a motion to deny, looking for a second.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second to deny the variance. Tom? I'm sorry, what's the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, then we'll deny the variance request and see what comes of it. Thank you. Item number 8 is a resolution approving an ICM agreement with WCI Austin Landfill LLC, SL.
We do these from time to time for monitoring and controlling the discharge from industrial properties to the wastewater treatment plant. This one is a little bit unique in that it is a facility that is outside of the city limits. It's a part of the demolition landfill that is north of town, northwest of town. And so therefore we have a few more stipulations that apply to a facility like this that is outside of the city limits and also based on its use. There's a whole list of testing that is required by the facility. We regulate, they haul the liquid in and discharge it at the treatment plant instead of it coming through the collection system. So we're able to monitor the number of loads and quantify those. There's also different administrative fees and tanker fees assigned to the discharge of the liquid at the wastewater treatment plant. This is a 3-year agreement, and we would recommend approval of this 3-year agreement with WCI Austin Landfill.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Any questions, council? If not, looking for a resolution for item number 8.
So moved.
Second.
Tom?
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Baskin.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Bashusta.
Aye.
Helly.
Aye.
Postma.
Aye.
Councilmember at Large Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. Number 9 is a resolution approving a contract for engineering services on Oakland Avenue West and First Avenue Southwest reconstruction project. Stephen?
Coming up in our 5-year CIP, we have identified our 2 one-ways, our one-way corridors through Austin to be reconstructed. That led us to apply for federal grants for a portion of the reconstruction cost, and we were successful in receiving a grant for Oakland Avenue West for 2025 in the amount of $2,160,000. Then a couple years later, we applied for another grant for First Avenue Southwest and a federal grant, and we're successful in the amount of $2 million. So we have $4 million worth of federal grants, along with state aid funds, assessments, sanitary sewer funds, and storm sewer funds. This is a really big project. We'd use lots of different funding sources for this project. And along with it being about 12 blocks in each direction, that is also a large footprint for us. And in order to move this project forward, gather community input on how best to phase the project, things that can be improved throughout the corridor. You know, you heard the folks that were here earlier tonight talking about this Oakland Avenue corridor as one of their spots for the brownfield look at. So we'd look at how this area is maybe converting from residential to small business and how the roadway and commuters can impact that in a positive and negative way. So lot bigger project than we typically do with street reconstruction. So in order to move this project forward, we looked at getting proposals from 3 consultants to assist us with that process. WHKS provided the low proposal of the 3. Mitch put together an RFP and detailed 9 different tasks that we want them to complete, ranging from a variety of things, from public input to completing the necessary NEPA documents that are required to meet the federal requirements, if any easements are required from the adjacent property owners, and then that rotates right then into preliminary design, again, meeting with property owners on how that design is developing. So it's a very large project. Our goal is to have all of this ready for bidding by December of 2024. So about 15, 16 months from now is our goal to have that ready for construction in the summer of 2025. It would then carry into a multi-year project, probably a 3-phase, 3-year project that would carry over from 2025 through 2027. So very large project for us when you look at the overall scope and the amount of businesses and traveling public that are impacted. To give you an idea, Oakland Avenue West was last constructed in 1979, so it's 46 years old. and First Avenue Southwest was last reconstructed in 1953, so it's 72 years old. So both of these roadways are in need of replacement along with all of their underground infrastructure. We scored the proposals based on the 4 different criteria that we have in the memo, and WHKS scored well along with SEH and Bolton Mink. So generally the biggest factor in determining the difference between them was the cost. Listed there for you with WHKS, a total cost is $795,700. That is going to be split 2 ways. The city portion is actually, and what we request for you to pass in the resolution tonight is $744,820. There is an option for some Austin Utilities water main design in the amount of $50,880, and they would handle funding that separately if they so chose. So the actual city amount for consideration tonight that we would request approval is $744,820 for WHKS to do the design services for this multi-year project.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions, council, for Mr. Lang?
Go ahead.
Stephen, how firm are we on the timeline on this? I'm a little concerned about taking away kind of one of these arterial routes at the same time that I think access to I-90, if I'm not mistaken, is also going to be really impacted.
So these federal grants are put out for solicitation 5 years prior to their planned construction. So we applied for this grant in 2020, hoping to get this proposed project for 2025. So it's been in the works for a while. At that time in 2020, we didn't know the exact timing of the interstate bridges, but we need to start construction on this project in 2025 to ensure the federal dollars. We can move up, like we proposed to start First Avenue maybe sooner than 2027, but we can't move back with the federal funding. So the Oakland Avenue portion or the start of the project is locked into 2025.
Good, thank you.
Stephen, quick question. I don't care where the money comes from because it all is taxpayer funded, but 5,330 hours at $150 an hour. Is there a better way to do this? It boggles the mind that it takes that much preparatory work for what I don't think is a huge piece, two huge pieces of concrete.
The best way that we have found to reduce consultant costs is to do the work in-house. We can generally, in the engineering department, do things for less money. We found that out in recent years when we were down in engineering tech and we had to hire a consultant to help us cover street reconstruction oversight. But we don't have the staff available for such a large project, which is why on some of these specialty projects like the wastewater treatment plant, airport projects, flood control projects, and now a big street reconstruction project, we look out to those experts that have experience all over the state in doing a project like this. Why is it $744,000? There is just a large amount of work that goes into these federal projects to check all the boxes, dot all the T's, dot all the I's, cross all the T's. There's just a large amount of work that goes into it. And you can see there, each of the 3 consultants looked at it a little bit differently. This consultant was quite a bit cheaper than the other 3 when looking at the volume of work required for this project. Hopefully that answers your question.
So Stephen, are you saying that we could dollar for dollar do it cheaper in-house, but that would mean we wouldn't run as lean a department year in, year out? You'd have to have more FTEs.
Correct.
Under your umbrella every year, all the time.
Correct. Whereas with something like this, we can, it depends on how you want to look at it, we can have a a consistent amount of staff, and then you hire a consultant when you ramp up for certain projects, or you have more staff and then you're ramped up for all the projects all the time. However, that manages with staff and hiring consultants as we bring these proposals forward to you for different projects.
Stephen,
One more thing, in addition to this proposal before you tonight, there's also needs to be surveying done on this project and soil borings done as well that are done by different consultants that we would bring forward to you in the future in the range of $15,000 to $20,000. So just to let you know, there are additional costs on top of this that we will be bringing forward in the future.
two questions for you. One is, like, what makes this so different than, I mean, we do multiple streets, obviously, every summer. Is it just the scale of it? I mean, what's so different about this one versus some of the projects we're doing this year?
We do generally about 25 to 30 blocks of street reconstruction. So, and generally those are residential street reconstruction, low volume traffic. You have a small impact on business travelers, you know, where this, all of a sudden you start throwing in commercial businesses, you throw in commuter traffic, it adds just a whole nother layer of planning, input. The federal process on this project adds a whole nother layer of requirements that are necessary. So this is just a bigger monster when compared with our local street reconstruction program. And we also plan to continue our normal street reconstruction program in addition to this large project. So that's where our staff is tied up with our normal things that we do every day. And this, we just can't fit this large of a project into our workload with our existing staff.
Okay. So then, second question, kind of building off the questions previously, would we get a better return as a city if we hired an additional staff? Or is it, I mean, I'm looking at, the number of hours, it's what, about 2.5 years worth of work? Like, does all that work take place like right away? So we'd have to hire like 3 more people? Or is it like if we hired another engineering person, that keeps them busy for 3 years, and then we figure we probably got something else coming up?
The person from the consultant that is going to be heading up this project is my level of person, my level of experience and pay.
Okay.
We can't just bring in someone right out of college. This is a high level type of oversight position to do this type of work.
Okay.
So it's hard for a city to ramp up with staff to do a big project like this.
Okay.
Is that?
It does, yep, thank you. Helpful.
All right, and we certainly have seen a good life out of those roads, 50 to 70 years. My goodness, doesn't get longer than that, so. All right, thank you, Stephen, for the answers, and looking for a resolution for item number 9 for the amount of $744,820 to WHKS.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tom?
Councilmember Baker,
Okay.
Baskin,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Bashusta,
Aye.
Helly,
Aye.
Postma,
Aye.
Councilmember at Large Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thanks, Tom. Item number 10 is a motion approving the purchase of a drone by the police department. Chief McKeegan.
We do have a drone program. We are bound by statute and how we operate that. We do currently have 2 licensed operators because we do operate it commercially, so to speak. They're also small plane licensed pilots who overview and oversight our program. Of the drones we have, we got a lot of value out of our very large DJI Matrice and the cameras that go with it. We have not found that we've gotten the same performance out of some of our lesser drones, and just because of how hard it is to actually get a license, we don't have a lot of operators to use them as secondary drones. So the operators that we do have identified interior searches as something that we are lacking, and our smaller drones just were not designed to pull that off. So we would like to replace those with the package before you that would allow us one, a more technologically advanced drone, just because they're growing in leaps and bounds in what they can do right now. And more importantly, this one would fill a gap for us to allow us to safely put something that's not a person or not an animal into an enclosed space, allow us to search it, hopefully safely, identify those factors that may allow us to make an entry, thereby cutting down on staff time, or tell us that we need to do other things. And again, I trust the judgment of both those operators, and this is the drone that they have recommended to us as a city, that if we adopted, it would fulfill that role for us.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief McKeegan?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11 is a resolution approving a Greater Minnesota Legacy Grant application for the J.C. Hormel Nature Center Supplemental Teaching Staff Project. Luke, welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is essentially the same thing we applied to the Legislative Citizen Commission for Minnesota Resources, and we presented before them a few weeks ago. We'll find out at the end of July if we're successful or not. However, this is another source of funding if that one does not work out. So our plan is we're applying for the same project, just to a different location. If we find that the LCCMR funding comes through, we'll pull this grant application. But the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission is the source of legacy funding that we can apply to because we're a regionally significant park. So again, this is the second naturalist who's really targeting outside of Austin kids to come into our environmental education programming for 3 years, and then an intern every year for each of the 3 years of the grant. So, any questions?
Any questions for Luke, council?
Luke, if we got both grants, could we get 2 people? Or is that not quite how that process works?
We don't have the space and capacity to do that.
Duly noted. Okay.
I would love that, but we don't have, it's not realistic, but yeah.
Okay.
Good idea. Motion to approve.
Second.
Tom?
Councilmember Baker.
You bet.
Baskin.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Bashusta.
Aye.
Helly.
Aye.
Postma.
Aye.
Councilmember at Large Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Luke. Item number 12 is a resolution declaring the property at 613 10th Drive Southeast a hazardous structure.
So moved.
Second.
Tom?
Councilmember Baker.
Yep.
Baskin.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Bashusta.
Aye.
Helly.
Aye.
Postma.
Aye.
Councilmember at Large Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. Item number 13 is a motion granting the Planning and Zoning Department the power to contract for the removal of junk and/or illegally stored vehicles at 707 6th Avenue Southwest
So
by
moved.
the Cary property. We have motions. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Before we get to citizens addressing council, Tom Schulte's waited patiently. He's got some good information for us to present to us. Tom?
Getting old. Mayor and council members, members of the council. Commander Tom Schulte, Austin Fire Department, President of Austin Professional Firefighters, Local 598, and Minnesota Professional Firefighters, Southern District Vice President. I did get promoted since last time I got to it.
Congratulations.
The MPFF holds an annual convention which rotates by district throughout the state. AKA convention will be hosted, every third year it's held in the Southern District. I'm honored to announce that for the 2023 MPFF convention will be hosted here in Austin on September 20th and 21st. Hosting the convention is a fantastic opportunity for us to showcase the city of Austin and the Austin Fire Department to other members of the MPFF and leaders from throughout the state of Minnesota. To my knowledge, Austin's second opportunity, first time hosting the MPF convention. Some of you remember the COVID debacle because we were supposed to host it in 2020, but that got all canceled. So 3 years ago, we had planned for inviting the council to a Fire Ops 101. Normally, it's a full day of various fire department scenarios where we run you through the paces. Due to changes in convention format, limited staffing and resources, we will not be doing Fire Ops this year. However, we have access to an acquired structure, an old farmhouse, happens to be on my property, for you to participate in some live fire training. I'm here this evening to invite you all to join us for this unique opportunity to step into the boots of a firefighter for a day. I say a day, but it's actually just a partial day. We want to keep things moving quickly. You'll be outfitted with turnout gear, a mask, SCBA, ride out in a fire truck, assist with setup, then experience what we call Level 1 burn evolution. Level 1 is the very basic entry-level fire that every firefighter must go through prior to completing Firefighter 1 training. You will see the fire ignited, observe it grow, push the fire back, and eventually extinguish the fire. After 3 evolutions are finished, we will burn the entire structure down. If you've never witnessed a fully engulfed structure up close, I'll just say this, it's eye-opening. It's seeing fire behavior at its finest. At a certain point, we will come back to the station for some quick cleanup. And if everyone works hard, we may be able to find you all some lunch. I understand this sounds like a full day, but the goal is actually to have everything wrapped up between 12 o'clock, 1 in the afternoon. So we don't want to take up your entire day like the fire ops would. Please keep in mind, as some of you may be a bit hesitant at the thought of this demanding scenario, throughout the entire day you will be guided by trained professionals and medical personnel will be on site. Your safety is truly our utmost importance.
Sure.
Don't worry, I'm inviting Clark too. In conjunction with Local 598, Austin Fire Department, the MPFF, the IFF, and Riverland Community College, we'd be honored to have you attend our live burn Saturday, September 9th. Again, full participation is strongly encouraged. If anyone truly feels this is just not their thing, we would still be happy to have you attend in an observatory role. Just an FYI, we will be extending the same invitation to Representative Mueller, Senator Dornick, he's already done this. He's done it live burn with me. Craig Clark's actually done it when you first started years back. And possibly to our friends and neighbors in Albert Lea City Council. We just kind of have to play that one by ear. And maybe we'll even get some media out there too. So I apologize for not getting on the agenda because basically we had to make sure that we were gonna be able to, this training burn was even gonna be feasible. There's a lot of, steps that we have to go through, asbestos abatements, all this stuff to make sure it was gonna work. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to address the council on such short notice. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
So it's Saturday, September 9th, kind of morning, afternoonish?
Yeah, so if we
ballpark?
can, usually what we'll do is we'll try to get started by 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Literally heading out the door at 7 a.m. and get rolling right away, and we'll have stuff pre-set up, and usually the harder we work, the sooner we get done.
Sounds great. Count me in.
Excellent. Thanks for the invitation, Tomer.
Absolutely. So I do have a sign-up sheet that I'm just gonna, it's a very informal sign-up sheet. But if you guys all want to sign up right away, I can wait till after council meeting to
Can you just
collect everything.
take our
Or
names?
I'm gonna just leave it in your possession, Mr.
Sure,
King,
that'd be fine. Yeah,
and
we'll take care of
I'll
it.
pick it up maybe next.
I can even deliver it, Tomer. I'll do that. Thank you.
Greg, you're invited.
Again, alumni.
You wanna come?
All right, thanks, Tom.
Thank you, council.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now on to citizens addressing the council. Are there any citizens in the audience wishing to address the council on matters that weren't addressed? Moving on, honorary council member, I told Mr. Clark today that our first applicant has not answered my 2 phone calls, so I moved on to the second applicant. Very delightful young woman, but she recently moved to the cities, still owns a house in Austin, but has kind of moved up there for job and school possibilities. So she was honored, but now is not the right time to complete that. So I'm open for anybody. I got a few ideas to ask, so just please put it out there if you know of anybody that would be a good candidate to be the honorary council member. Reports and recommendations. Craig, anything?
I have nothing.
And on to city council. Let's go with Joyce.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Paul.
Nothing, Your Honor.
JJ.
2 quick things. One is congratulations to Games People Play on celebrating 40 years in business. Great community members and very happy to have them here. And then second, just wanted to note that we honor the memory of Fargo Police Officer Jake Wallen and the officers who were injured this weekend. Obviously, we appreciate the work that our police officers and our firefighters and our first responders do. And, we talk about risk, and they take real risk every day. And so, obviously, a very tragic situation, and we are deeply, deeply appreciative of the work that our first responders and public safety workers do.
Right, well said. Thanks, JJ. Jeff?
Yes, just, we had a library board meeting last Monday, just reporting that summer programming at the public library is going well. Shows and concerts have been well attended, and final touches are being completed on the building construction.
Very good. Thank you. Jeff?
I'm gonna check, nothing tonight.
Mike?
Just again, a thanks to the Parks Department, the AEG folks. There's so many groups that were involved. Our first responders keeping an eye on things for the 4th of July. It was a great event. We've not had fireworks with an intermission before since I've been here, so that was a nice twist. And then also just excited, the AJGA, the junior golfers, are in town this week for the first annual Austin Classic, I believe, sponsored by Hormel Foods. 100 juniors and their families staying in town all week from 19 states and 3 countries, including New Zealand and China. So, really cool.
So we received word today that our Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Director, Dave Merrill, will be leaving the city. So congratulations to Dave. He's found another opportunity in Illinois. His last day of service will be August 11th. On behalf of the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Board, I need to say that the board really appreciated working with him and was very impressed with a lot of his skills and abilities, especially outreach to the community. I don't think I've ever seen any city at the director level integrate into the community as quickly as he did. So kudos to him for his service. I'm going to take this opportunity to recommend that the city consider hiring an interim director from outside of the city, someone from another community who has run a similar size parks department. I think that the department itself, having been through a couple of directors in a couple of years, will benefit from stability and support of having somebody in that chair who has the time and expertise. And I also think that would give us a person to manage the hiring process of the permanent director, who would have fresh eyes and who has not recently been through a process to hire somebody that may have not gone as well as we might have hoped. It also would reduce the time pressure. Parks, Recreation, and Forestry is very seasonal, and so as spring comes, the feeling of we got to get somebody in place increases, and I think if we had a solid interim hire from another community, that might really help us make sure we take our time and get the right person in the position. So obviously we can't take any action tonight, but I wanted to advocate for that idea. And then I also just want to mention that last month I heard council members ask our department heads to come up with money-saving ideas and ways to stretch the budget. And if you were listening tonight, we heard from department heads that went out and found grants or found cost savings in other ways. And so I just want to say thank you, because I think that work of really stretching a dollar is happening all the time in the city on a day-to-day basis, and that's why we have the city that we have. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Lauren. The only thing I have to add is council, some staff, and then some Port Authority members were able to tour the Mill on Main apartment complex. They're opening up on August 1st, 92 units. Very impressive, and they report that they're 40% occupied at this time. So it's going to be a nice facility, nice addition to our city. And with that, looking for a motion to adjourn to August 7th, 2023.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
See you.